The Super Regionals are here.
Get your popcorn ready for the College Baseball Insider Show with Matt Grissom and Quentin Mills, giving you all the insights and analysis you need for the weekend slate that college baseball has to offer.
Oh no! Battles deep into the night has left the stadium entirely.
Now, here are your hosts, ready to dive into the top matchups.
Well, the Super Regionals are here, and the Arkansas Razorbacks are not part of them. So that concludes the show for us. I'm just kidding. Joined, as always, by Quentin Mills, my big Florida Gator best friend over here. Q, how you feeling ahead of the South Carolina Super Regional in Gainesville?
The anxiety's starting to set. I was pretty relaxed all week. Now it's starting to set in, and I'm feeling a little anxious. I want it to be here. I want it to be tomorrow, but then I don't, because I'm afraid that this South Carolina team could beat us. They're very, very capable of that. But it should be a good, at least from a non-biased person, it should be probably the best super regional matchup, in my opinion.
So this is probably like you said, the best matchup. So we've decided to do something we have not done before, which we'll be unveiling tonight. We're going to break down this between two, Florida Insider and South Carolina Insider, which we'll get into later. But let's dive in. I guess from the jump, the Super Regional Guide is out. So you can go download that, ncaainsiders.com. We'll take you to our Linktree page. You can download it there. Or, as always, go to collegebaseballinsiders.com, download it there for free.
Couple changes on it. Couple changes. We've added impact players, hitters, and pitchers. We also added a section of how we got here with wins and losses. We've added the analytics again. We have our closing segments on each section, and then our best bet picks. So similar format. It's got the weather and all that, but there are little added benefits to what we think should help you win some bets.
Yeah, and let's kind of touch on the regionals. Did anything stand out to you? I know, obviously, TCU taking down Arkansas, it didn't really surprise me just with how hot TCU had been playing. I'm probably more impressed with how they took it to Hagen Smith. Granted, he bounced back in a big way the next day, and I don't know if the rain delays and stuff had anything to do with it, but this Arkansas team just kind of, they got their butts kicked. I mean, there's no way around it. Oral Roberts stuck out to me. They looked really impressive down in that Stillwater Regional. Penn almost got home on my 10-1 ticket, but ultimately it was Southern Miss. Anything else that stuck out to you that you want to touch on real quick?
Yeah, it wasn't that TCU beat Arkansas. It was just how they did it. I thought TCU Arkansas would have been just a little closer matchup. So that was surprising to me. Another massive surprise was Vanderbilt not getting out of the Nashville region. I thought that was one of, if not the easiest regional bracket. They just looked dead. They looked like the team that they had all year. I think the SEC tourney gave us all false hope, of maybe Tim Corbin got those guys kind of straightened out, but we saw they didn't. They just, that killed them. So that was a little bit of a surprise. I think Iowa as well, losing. I thought they were going to have a pretty easy time in a winner's bracket once they depleted, their three starters, Langenberg, Morgan, and Brody Breck. That was kind of it. I mean, their bullpen really fell apart. They gave away, several multi-run leads. So that was a bit surprising. I was actually surprised in a positive way. Texas offense came alive. It had been dead for most of the season. Part of that was because they lost a ton of talent last year. My buddy's a massive Longhorns fan. They haven't had super great offenses of years. I mean, last year they had Melendez and all that, but they turned it on. I mean, they went from dead Big 12 to live in Coral Gables and shut down, frankly, a hot Miami team. So I think that was a surprise. And then I think my Gators, last year they went down in the losers bracket against 2-seed Oklahoma, and they lost. Ryan Slater blew that game late. So it was very cool to see him kind of get that rebound moment and be able to succeed. And it was good and surprising to see Florida kind of persevere and get through that. Not that they should have ever been in that position. In my opinion, their bats kind of went dead, but it was cool and surprising to actually see them overcome that and win.
So going back to Texas, I think let's start there in the Stanford Regional. We'll go backwards, but Texas comes in over and something we've added that I'm excited about. So we did run differential for the season-long average in the regional preview. This one we kind of honed in on the run that they're on currently. So we did run differential over their last 20 games, run differential over their last 10. Texas has gone from 5 to 7, which at 7 over their last 10 puts them at the second best team as far as hotness. These Longhorns are playing really well. We know about Lucas Gordon and LeBaron Johnson. They've got the pitching staff to contend. Pac-12, though, Stanford's really good at home.
The ball flies.
Yeah, I think Quinn Matthews is going to get the start on Friday, or is this may be a Saturday game, but Saturday. So if Quinn Matthews goes, do they throw Lucas Gordon or do they hold off and kind of play chess with that? I mean, I think Texas could probably beat them even with Quinn Matthews going. I know he pitched like well over 150 pitches over the last weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see. But what stands out to you most in this one?
I think it's the run differential. As we look at the last 20, especially for Texas, and then the last 10, the bats are starting to wake up. Dylan Campbell, Eric Kennedy, some other guys, Powell, Porter Brown has been big. But Stanford, I mean, outside of Quinn Matthews, I mean, Matt Scott hasn't gotten it done. Joey Dixon hasn't gotten it done. Like A&M obviously was a streaky team. They've had some up and down with pitching this year, and they had Stanford by on the ropes. I mean, they were up 2-0 and should have frankly closed that. And we should be looking at a Texas A&M Texas rivalry in a super regional, but here we are. We're not. The more and more that I see these numbers, when the guide came out, I was kind of a stay away, but I'm really starting to lean Texas here because I think, like you just stated, you can throw some chess, at a checkers board. I think you have the ability to play with two pitchers where Stanford doesn't. I mean, if you're Stanford, you have to get off on the right foot, in my opinion. I don't think you could try to save Quinn Matthews in a game 2 situation to maybe, if you get lucky, you close out of game 1 and then you have your ace going game 2 to lock this thing down. I don't think you have that option because you can't trust your other starters. Texas can, like we just said. They've got another guy in LeBaron Johnson who's pitched really well, as of late. He's got a great 8 RA. He just pitched a complete game, so he can go to the distance. He throws a ton of pitches and without gassing. So I would imagine Lucas Gordon starts. Like, Texas really hasn't messed with the lineup too much, but I kind of like where your head's at, and maybe David Pierce should look at that situation and really kind of play that game, because if you take that game when you lose, you still got your ace to kind of get you back into the series. Or if you steal game 1, you've got the ability to close it down with your ace.
And that's another one. Tanner Witt's numbers don't look very impressive, but I think he's
coming back from injury.
Yeah, you throw a Tanner Witt on game 1 if they're throwing Quinn Matthews, and you just see what happens. I mean, worst case scenario, you lose, but you've got Lucas Gordon and LeBaron Johnson Jr. to go Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
So that would be, I'm not on the coaching staff, so my opinion's irrelevant, but that's probably how I would attack that, honestly, because it's going to be a tough ask, and you're going to essentially burn Lucas Gordon if you throw him against Quinn Matthews. I mean, you're putting all your eggs in one basket that, all right, this is the game we've got to win. Jumping to Virginia, the Cavaliers take on the Duke Blue Devils. Duke looked pretty impressive last weekend, to say the least. This is one of those teams where I feel like all season long they were just riding the wave, and they lost some guys like Jonathan Santucci to injury. Their pitching staff was never great, but it was good. now here they are. The only stat they lead Virginia in is home runs, but this Cavs team is playing lights out. I mean, their run differential just over the regional that they just played in, I don't have it in front of me, but it was really good. They took it to them. We're both on Virginia here. Why don't you tell them why?
Well, the first thing is Duke's already been to Charlottesville and took 2 of 3, so that's going to be a motivation factor that I'd talk about, with a couple of these teams. Their starting pitchers lights out. I mean, what Nick Parker did against ECU, what Kennelly Early did against ECU. They still have Jack O'Connor. They still have Brian Edgington. All of those guys are pitching well. They're hitting the ball lights out. They're getting production from guys outside of Kyle Teal and Jake Geloff. Those are obviously the two most prominent names, but Ethan O'Donnell, O'Donnell, Anderson, Salke, you look at Anthony Stefan coming off the bench. Now he's kind of worked himself into a more starting role for them. Like, they're getting Griff O'Farrell bats 400 in the leadoff. Like, they have the lineup to really make a solid run towards a national title, not just in the super regionals. I think they've got the complete team to do it. And Duke, they looked good. I mean, they let a team in Coastal Carolina shell them. You're going to have a similar situation. Maybe not the power per se, but UVA is just as good, if not a better hitting team than Coastal. So Duke's got a good bullpen. They gave up runs. I mean, and I expect that for UVA. UVA's got better pitching than Coastal, and Coastal did beat Duke. So it's easy to beat Duke, in my opinion, with solid pitching and good hitting. And I like the Cavs to keep rolling.
Yeah, Duke, of course, 15th of 16th in run differential, so second to worst in the super regionals. Virginia 33-4 at home. It's going to be very tough to talk anybody out of taking the Cavs here, even if you've got to lay the juice.
Charlottesville is going to be lit too. I mean, they had a hell of a showing in the regionals between them and ECU, so it's going to be loud. They got a solid fan base,
So I put in the guide, if you had Oregon, Oral Roberts in a super regional in Eugene on your bingo card, congratulations. You need to go buy a lottery ticket. Yeah. But here we are. The Ducks are going back out west to host the Golden Eagles of Oral Roberts, who, let me say, they're on like a 21-game win streak. This team, strength of schedule, stuck out to me the most, of the 268. I didn't think that they were going to be able to contend over a long weekend, but they did. This team is good. I mean, put aside the strength of schedule and the fact that they're a mid-major, they've got stats better than half the SEC. And seeing it in person and seeing what they did in that Stillwater Regional, I think I lean Oral Roberts here. I wish I would have gotten Circa's opening number. I think they hung plus 155. Barstool had it at like plus 120, I think, when they first opened, which I guess value's value if you like the better team. But this Golden Eagles team is dangerous, and Oregon swung the bat really well. They had a lot of speed coming around the bases. They took it to Vanderbilt in that sense. I think Oral Roberts may be playing more consistent baseball right now, while Oregon may have just had a good weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I'd have put a small ticket on Oral Roberts. I had Dallas Baptist and Okie State. I thought Okie State had kind of maybe turned the corner. Obviously, they did. And I thought Dallas Baptist was a formidable team to make an Omaha run. And, they played well. Obviously, they ran into the Golden Eagles. But like you said, I mean, the Golden Eagles, they're on a 20 or 21-game win streak. I think this series goes 3 games. I mean, I don't see a sweep by any means on either side. The one question mark is Jay Stoffel. Is he going to pitch in this series? Like, you can't find any news on him. It's locked tight. So that's the biggest question mark. Does Oregon have their top guy? I think if he doesn't, then I think there's really good value in Oral Roberts. I think if he does, between him, Jay Stoffel, and Logan Mercado, I think it could be a little tougher, because Oregon did play really well. They should have some confidence heading back home in front of their fan base. So this is probably a stay away from me. I'm looking at better juice at other places. I mean, this is a value pick like we talk about, but I just don't know enough about either team to confidently put my money on. But if I definitely had to lean, I would take Oral Roberts here to kind of keep the Cinderella story rolling.
So let's jump into another SEC matchup. LSU is taking on Kentucky. LSU won the series earlier this season against Kentucky 2-1. Or no, they swept them, didn't they?
No, 2-1.
No, they took one. Okay.
Yeah, they took the middle game.
So Kentucky, once again, our friend with eye test analytics here, he was high on this Kentucky team. The numbers added up, but I think this is where they get exposed. Even if you throw out the LSU is not good out of the pen outside of Paul Skeens, maybe Ty Floyd now, I think this offense is going to be too good for UK's average pitchers. And I say average. I mean, they're 39th in xFIP. They're 11th in ERA, which is not bad. They're 38th in Sierra. But when you compare it to the field, they're tied for 12th with a 4.45 average, while LSU is at 4.18. I just think you can always Sharpie in Paul Skeens as a Friday night win. And this one starts Saturday. So game one win, we'll keep it simple. But Ty Floyd's coming on. I think he's going to get the second win. This is kind of open and close for me. I could maybe make a case that Kentucky stretches this to game 3. But if Kentucky stretches it to game 3, I would put LSU on life alert because I don't think they want to do that. I think they get the win with Skeens and Floyd, and they go on to Omaha.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I don't think this actually gets to 3 games. Ty Floyd has pitched pretty well as of late, behind Paul Skeens, like you said. The series, in my opinion, is starting 1-0 off the jump, and it's really a best-of-2 series, for being honest. Kentucky, again, they play small ball. They play really well, so kudos to them. I've talked about them. They made the jump from last year's team to this year's team has been incredible. So tip your cap to that. But the firepower, I mean, we saw in the series last time they played. I mean, LSU matched the ball on Kentucky's pitchers. Riley Cooper's pitched really well. Thatcher Hurd's looking really well right now as of late. Guidry, I think the bullpen is starting to turn around enough to at least get this team to Omaha. We did talk about that's their kryptonite, but they're starting to figure it out, and they're getting good outings from those back end guys and from a number 2 starter. So I actually think LSU is probably one of the few series that goes 2-0 here. I was pretty as well.
I was pretty surprised to see over the last 20 and last 10 games, LSU has the worst run differential of the field of 16. It's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah.
But all right. So Tennessee Volunteers, they take care of Clemson. They are in Hattiesburg, which was an argumentative thing. Political. Yeah. It is what it is. Hattiesburg probably deserved it more. Pete Taylor Park, 4,300 people. It's not like a huge home field advantage. I feel like for Southern Miss, Tennessee's used to that in the SEC. They're playing hot. They figured out how to win away from Lindsey Nelson. This team, I'm kicking myself for not buying into them more. I had the 2 futures tickets from before the season at like 7-1 and 8-1. I think they got as high as like 30-1, and
yeah.
I didn't jump on them, but
I didn't either.
As of right now, I think Tennessee may be the team to beat coming out of the SEC.
I have them at either 14 or 15-1, so I do have a little better odds than you. But like I said, I think we missed the boat on the max value there. I think Tennessee actually handles them. I think they're going to be pissed off that they didn't get the ability to host and kind of play in Knoxville. But like you said, we talked about it last week. The question mark for Tennessee was, can they figure out how to hit? The pitching's been there all year. They've had great numbers all year. It's been the mental side of hitting. The talent's there, the power's there, the speed's there, the ability is there. We finally saw it against a good team in Clemson, and then they just carried it on. Charlotte had no opportunity in that final game. So that was kind of reassuring that they could continue this past a game that they played up for in the Clemson matchup. I like Tennessee here. I think it's actually I think I locked it in at like 141 or something like that. I think that's actually considered value because of how deadly this team can be. Culmination of Vitalo getting those guys pissed off to them swinging the bats to the pitching matchup. even with Tanner Hall throwing, Andrew Lindsay's had just as good starts, in my opinion. I think this might be another 2-0 series as well in Tennessee's way.
Yeah, Southern Miss for me, like I love Tanner Hall, but he gets 0 run support. I feel like when he's
Yeah.
out there, what did he
He's the
pitch?
Jacob deGrom.
He pitched a full game and they lost 2-1 or something. That it
Yeah.
just sucks for him. But
He's
yeah, I think
Jacob deGrom of college baseball.
he really is. So the TCU Horned Frogs that sent the Razorbacks home at home, they were red hot. I mean, they're fourth, and then they're moving into that trajectory. Now they're third in run differential over the last 10 games. They're taking on an Indiana State team that unfortunately missed their shot at hosting because of the Special Olympics. We all know by now, but this team it's kind of like Arkansas, where the TCU Arkansas matchup, I thought it would come down to that. And then I always anchor a handicap in pitching, but Indiana State is the better pitching team. But I don't know how you can not back a team like they beat Arkansas 20-5. They shelled Hagen Smith.
And then 12-6?
Yeah. I mean, these guys, you had Trey Richardson, who came in on the season hitting 2 home runs. He hit 2 grand slams and then a 3-run shot against Arkansas in that first game. They're playing lights out right now. I want no part of trying to back the Cinderella story in Indiana State here. I think it's TCU or pass.
Yeah, I agree. I think any and all hope. Well, first off, I want to give credit to TCU fans for supporting. I think they're like 25 or 30,000 that they sent to the Special Olympics. So that was pretty stand up. So kudos to them. But Indiana State, obviously, I think, and I said it in this little excerpt, any and all chance they had was to try to keep this in Terre. How you say it? Terre Haute.
Terre Haute.
Terre Haute. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that was their momentum right there to kind of keep it in their area. When they had to concede that to TCU, you're getting a rowdy fan base. You're getting a Big 12 fan base who's passionate about baseball in Fort Worth. Combinating that with the mauling that they, produced in Fayetteville, they're alive and they're awake. And I, even though like we kind of anchor everything towards pitching, I have to look at this opposite like you. Sometimes solid pitching just isn't enough to stop a flaming hot bat. And I think TCU right now I think they're going to get to Omaha and then we're going to start seeing maybe the cracks.
Yeah. Well, and I said that and got some pushback on Twitter with, I'm friends with the guys with the Lupton Drinking Club. They do a pretty good podcast over there, but they were arguing with me about the pitching. Like they've just been hurt.
Yeah.
Ben Abel, he had a really good outing against Arkansas to just kind of shut the door on us. So the pitching is there. I don't want to say that they're horrible and they just can't pitch, but we kind of got to Cam Brown there for a little bit in that game too, but ultimately their offense was too hot and we just we couldn't score enough runs against TCU this past weekend.
Yeah.
That was ultimately the biggest problem. So, okay. Florida, South Carolina. We know that you're the resident Florida fan of the group. Congratulations, your team is still standing. Now I'm a Wake Forest fan because we're going to try to get that ticket home. South Carolina looks dangerous. They look like the team that beat LSU on a Friday night, and they look like the team that swept Florida earlier in the season. Are the Gamecocks back? And what are your unbiased thoughts on this series?
I think it's going to be probably the toughest and the most exciting series. These teams have they don't have much love for each other. They've played in the College World Series finals against each other, semifinals. Like they've been there in these big heavyweight fights. And I think we're seeing that again. I do think they're back to their form. They're healthy. We talked about they were missing LaCroix. Messina had to play a position outside of catcher. McGillis was hurt. Gavin Casas was kind of in and out of the lineup. So they are better. They're kind of figuring it out. Will Sanders maybe isn't going to be starting for them this weekend, as we'll kind of allude to later on, but he's figured it out to kind of be a long relief guy or kind of a late, back end guy to really close the game out. they've got ways that they can win. They've got multiple ways. They're pliable. They hit for power. The one factor that I harp on is revenge. I think home field advantage are unquantifiable stats that maybe not in the pros, but in college, they really carry some weight. Florida was swept by this team on the road. Kevin O'Sullivan knows how to get his teams ready for Omaha. Kevin O'Sullivan is going to hammer that in their head. Hey, this team, yeah, we're just going to post all the scores around the locker room. Loss, loss, loss. Hey, they're coming in for 2 more guarantee. Let's not make that 5 losses. So I think they're going to be prepared. I do have Florida on a non-bias because I do think their pitching is way better at home. So I think they have the edge there. I believe Kevin O'Sullivan has never lost a super regional. To combine all of those together, and then South Carolina's ability to strike out sometimes can be not alarmingly high, but kind of on the higher side. So Florida can throw strikes. I think that's going to keep them in the game. And then as long as Florida's bats stay hot, they can beat anybody in the country, to include Wake Forest, in my opinion. So I think this definitely goes 3 games. As a fan, I want Florida to win, but even as a bettor, I'll either bet on my team or not bet against them or just not take the game. But I actually feel like they can get this done in 3 games.
Yeah, you got to be a real sicko to bet against your own team.
Hey,
like
but
I did.
Yeah, but
you know
I
what
get it.
wasn't sad? Making 10 units betting against your team because you just knew
nice.
that you were outmatched. He actually did lose 2009. It looks like NCAA Super Regional was where he went out, but the trend is, he's been eliminated in the regional stage 6 times, it looks like. So the trend would tell you, you get through the regional with Kevin O'Sullivan, he's going to make it to Omaha. But like you said, Florida, we've got futures tickets. They're swinging the bat really well right now. They showed a lot of resiliency coming back against Texas Tech. The thing that intrigues me most is the run differential, and we'll see just kind of how, if that matters. Florida trending on the lower end. Yeah, they go from 13th of 16 to 14th of 16. Meanwhile, South Carolina goes from 5 to 4. So their trajectory is they're playing a lot better as of late, which is what matters. We're trying to repeat the quantifiable truth of Ole Miss last year and how we predicted this.
For sure.
We're just trying to replicate that success. So anything and everything we can add to these guides to help get there. But the number 1 team in basically every category left, as far as pitching, run differential, everything, you name it, it's the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. They're taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide.
You didn't give your side. You didn't give your side in Gainesville. We got to put it on the record.
South Carolina. I'm taking South Carolina at plus money. I think it's a coin
on the
flip.
record.
It's just like I handicap games. If I've got a coin flip game, I'm taking the team getting the plus money. So
you might be on the right side.
South Carolina's got the pitching advantage. This will be an interesting one though to bet game to game because I like James Hicks, Conway guy. I've heard from an insider with the Gamecock Nation that he's probably going to start tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm assuming Brandon Sproat will go on the other side. I may, if you're going to give me South Carolina plus money there, I'll probably take them in game 1 also. But back to the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, my adopted team for the time being. Alabama Crimson Tide playing so well after Brad Bohannon got fired for his gambling mishap. And I just want to say thank you, Circus Sports, Jeff Davis, for not being afraid to hang lines on Alabama.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is with all these other sports books of why you can't bet these. There was nothing there. They've done an investigation. It's open and closed. No player was involved. None of the other coaches were involved. It is what it is. And if you watch the game, you know that Alabama almost came back and won it. So in the end, it's evident that nobody was trying to fix that game. And Paul Skeens deserved to be a minus 300 favorite. But Alabama made it look really easy this past weekend, sweeping in their regional down in Tuscaloosa. Wake Forest made it look easier than that, if that was even possible. 12-0, 21-6, 15-1. Those were the finals for Wake Forest this past weekend. So it's minus 305 at Circa. Would you lay it with Wake or parlay it if you were out in the desert right now? Or do you think there's any value at all at Alabama plus 255?
255 is juicy. I think Alabama can obviously make it closer than Maryland and George Mason. You know, they got good starters, but I know the one curse is still lingering out there, but I just don't see this Wake Forest team not making it to Omaha. You know, maybe if they lose, you know, they're running into your LSUs, your South Carolinas, Tennessees, Floridas out there. They're not playing them right now. You know, Alabama's good. I don't see any vision of Wake Forest not in the Final Eight. They're just too good. I mean, they have 3 number ones, and you can make the argument that Seth Keener could be a number one. You know, so what do you do with that? I mean, it's Tennessee's the only other comparable stat, in my opinion, to a pitching rotation like that. And then you look at the teams, the offensive side, you know, Pierce Bennett, Brock Wilken, Adam Cecile, Nick Kurtz, like they're sluggers, but they can also hit and they got some speed. Tommy Hawk's not even on there, and he's an impact leadoff hitter. The guy flies around the bases in some Jordans. So their lineup is just stacked top to bottom. I just don't see if Alabama has really any shot. I mean, I don't think they're going to get blown out 21-6, but I don't think any game is necessarily going to be super close.
Yeah, and Alabama's got some guys. I mean, I think Tommy Seidel, Andrew Pinckney, they're solid, and Luke Coleman is a good starter. McNary's playing really well here lately. I just think, I mean, this is like the worst thing you could have asked for if you're Alabama. I mean, going against a gauntlet of a team.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to open and shut the door, I feel like, on the Tide. But outside of that, we're down to, I mean, it's getting in the nitty gritty. We're going to have 8 teams remaining come Monday night. So
it's bittersweet.
Do you have anything else? I mean, we've been on a great run here where I totaled up. It's in the guide, regional record. I went 30-32 plus 21.5 units, which 10 of them came off betting on TCU there. Q had 29-19 record, up 9.13 units.
Pennies to what Grissom Tweets is throwing out there.
Well, I like to lay a lot of units against my own team, apparently. I'll never be welcome back on Arkansas Sports Radio because they ask me, what's your best bet ahead of the game 2 against TCU? And I gave out TCU plus 140. I said that we should not be minus 175, 180 against TCU. They shelled our best pitcher. What do you think's going to happen? I mean, it is what it is. And hats off to Hagan because he bounced back, had a great game, but they're too much. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's sad that it's coming to an end, but we'll have at least one more week of coverage on baseball. But anything else to kind of sign us off here?
2 more weeks. We'll have 2 more
weeks.
Well,
yeah, 2 more weeks because of the Omaha being stretched out.
Yep. No, I mean, I think the guide pretty much has everything in there. Again, you know, I think we talked about it on Twitter. There's a lot of juice in this 8 region matchup. You're going to have to lay juice if you want to win money. There's going to be juice single games. There's juice series prices. It just is what it is. The books are starting to figure out, you know, and then once you go from 64 teams to only 16, they have the ability to research more. They're not covering as much, so the lines are going to get a little sharper. You know, that's why we hope to provide this guide to kind of give you an edge, because I still think we have an edge. It just might be minimalized, but you follow us. I mean, we could go back. I think both of us have had maybe one losing week all season long. So, you know, we're good at what we do. You know, we're not going to steer you in the wrong direction. We're not perfect, but we're going to do everything we can to help you. And sometimes there may not be a game or two. Like, it's okay to lay off. You know, I don't want to force picks down anybody's throat. If you don't like it, don't play it. So that's kind of all I got. You know, just ride the wave with us and we'll win you some money.
Well, let's cover our best bets real quick. I just noticed a typo. TCU, I did not get plus 220. that was what
That would be
TCU
pretty.
was in the Fayetteville regional. But
Yeah.
I'm on TCU. I think I laid like minus 140-ish, something like that. I'll have to go back and look. And of course, you can check our bet tracker at collegebaseballinsiders.com. I'm on Virginia. I think the Cavs get it done. I laid minus 190 on that. LSU minus 220. I laid that heavy juice. Tennessee minus 141. I took South Carolina plus 115. I think you can get a better number than that now. And then I laid minus 105 with Texas. I think you can get a better number now. And then I've kind of gone back and forth on Oral Roberts. I think Oral Roberts is the right side, so I'm going to end up betting that. I'm going to try to get the better number though, because I don't want it at plus 120. I'd rather have plus 140, plus 145.
Yeah. So I got TCU. I have them at minus 165, I believe, without looking. Not the 220. Again, that was a typo. I do have Virginia at the 190. I have LSU at the 220. I'm confident in. Tennessee, again, I spoke earlier in this show. I think minus 141 is great value for that team. I got Florida at minus 139. I would have liked to see that a little bit lower. I kind of actually thought that was going to be like in the 120s, but I'm okay with laying it. I think they can get it done. And I think I'm going to add Texas. I don't know what line because I gotta find it and book it. I know Barstool actually took away super regional futures, so I got to try to figure that out. But I think I'm actually going to lean Texas, so I will put that out on Twitter, and then I'll post all my plays out on Twitter for you guys to kind of follow. And then, the single game bets, just do what you always do. Follow us on Twitter. And, put on your notifications because we're going to have some plays for you. And we always get them out pretty early, so you always have time to bet them. So watch out for our single games. And then if you don't like these odds, maybe you parlay TCU and LSU to get a good number. So.
Yeah, and we're going to start trying to tweet out the numbers for the projected starters, and then we'll bold for the ones that are confirmed. We've got a lot of guys helping us out with this, working.
It's a team, man.
It's truly a fraternity of college baseball handicappers all trying to help each other. Noah Bieniek, Johnny, which, has been on the show, Colin Wilson over at Action Network, and the list goes on and on. The guys at Friday Starters. We're all just trying to bring everything we can to the sport just to help everybody out. Because let's face it, we all want to make money off the sports books when they hang a wrong line. So, thank you all for joining us today and cash some tickets this weekend. And as Q said, make sure you're following us along because we'll try to get those graphics out for our best bets and all the starting pitchers as well. So, with that, cheers to the Super Regional weekend. Q, good luck for your Gators.